pain pushes until vision pulls. The Reverend Michael Beckwith said this, and I can so relate. A couple of years ago, I was absolutely overwhelmed by feelings of worthlessness and uselessness. Life had dished me up a great big serving of humble pie and put me out to pasture. I craved something more, something to put a spring back into my step and a reason to go on living. I found something more in a big way at Chime, the Chaplaincy Institute of Maine, where I was ordained. At Chime, we formed healing circles of trust. We learned how to dismantle walls of fear and how to build bridges of understanding. I even took the risk of turning to divine love, opening up and letting Spirit in. And now the vision of beloved community pulls at my heart and drives me forward. Like Martin Luther King, I have a dream. My dream is for us to be spiritually empowered, independent men and women who are attentive, reflective, and loving. Women and men who nurture our seeds of greatness, who work together to resolve our problems, and who trust in divine love to reveal the perfect solutions in the perfect way at the perfect time. My dream is for more of us to be like our forefathers and mothers who more than a couple hundred years ago proclaimed separation from Great Britain and our emergence as a new sovereign nation, one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. The Declaration of Independence states, all people are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to secure these rights, governments are instituted, deriving their just powers from the consent of us, the governed. Those few words sum up the divine source of our unalienable rights and our philosophy of government. But these beliefs had to be affirmed by a long, bloody war, which was finally won. And the result has been this shining light on a hill, the imperfect United States of America, the freest, most creative, most productive, and richest nation in the history of humankind. So, what has this got to do with the parable of the 10 talents? Look at what those of us who live here have inherited. A country that protects our freedom, our lives, and our happiness. A country that makes it possible for us to fulfill our potential and become the people God created us to be. We've been gifted with so much. And the question is, what are we doing with our legacy? What are we doing with the resources, the talents God has given us? We've been given a huge amount of resources, and Spirit, the Holy Spirit, needs us to amplify or make the most of what we've been given. Why? To spread the message and power of Christ and enable people to fulfill their potential and glorify God. We have a responsibility to make the most of our talents, and woe unto us if we don't. We all feel the pain. Each of us has been entrusted with resources of time, material wealth, abilities, different circumstances. Everything comes from God and everything belongs to God. But we are responsible for using those resources so that they increase in value and are a blessing to others. And as you know, when we make it a habit to live like this, we become bigger, more powerful, and more blessed sparks of the divine. Pastor David Howard, author of The Lasting Supper, Letters for Deconstruction, implores us to take charge of our lives, to remember and rejoice that, number one, we are free, and we've always been free. Number two, we have the right to ask questions as a way to become wise. And three, it's our right and responsibility to find and walk our own spiritual path and to let our light shine for others. Someone whom I just learned about, who to me epitomizes the spiritual independence, is retired U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Travis Mills, a young man who was critically injured on his third tour of duty in Afghanistan. Travis lost big portions of both his legs and both his arms. He had a wife and a new baby at the time, and when he found himself lying in hospital with no arms, no legs to speak of, he told his wife to take the baby, take everything we have, and leave. Can you imagine what he was thinking? What he was feeling? I mean, can you imagine yourself in that situation? I imagine he was probably thinking, I'll never be able to amount to anything. I'll never be able to take care of my family. There's nothing I can do. I won't be able to get around. I'm worthless. They'd all be better off forgetting about me. But do you know what happened? Some of you might have heard his story on television recently. Travis' wife and family stayed at his side. And Travis worked his butt off through surgeries and rehab, choosing to live by the motto, never give up, never quit. Despite his horrendous circumstances and a really dismal prognosis, he eased everyone. He now gets himself around using 4 prostheses. He and his wife have another child on the way, and he's become a motivational speaker, actor, author, and an advocate for veterans and other amputees. Travis Mills' spirit soars, and no one and nothing can hold it back. He's taking charge of his life and making the most of his resources in this great country of ours. Now the question is, what are we doing with our gift of life? Are we choosing to be a blessing in all the ways we can, wherever we can? Or are we asleep at the switch?